On the ninth day, the mail came one last time, friends. And what came was the same for every family on that road. No letters, that ninth morning. No catalogs, no bills, none of what had been coming all that impossible week. Addressed and stamped and true. Just one card in every box, all up the 11 miles of rural delivery to. 60 boxes, one card each, no stamp, no address, no writing on it at all. A photograph, friends. Each family drew out of their own mailbox a photograph of their own house. Not an old picture, not a town record. Their house as it stood that week, that season, the woodpile as it was, the tractor where it was, the frost on that morning's grass. Friends, and every photograph, all 60, was taken from the same vantage. From the road, from the pull-off by each mailbox. At the height, friends, and my father proved this with a yardstick and his own truck before the government came and took our proof away, at the exact height of the driver's seat of a rural mail jeep. Something had gone down our road with the mail that week. Friends, pausing at every box the way Window had paused at every box for 31 years. And on the ninth day, it wanted us to know that it had not just been delivering. It had been looking. 60 families opened 60 boxes and understood in the same hour that they had been photographed by their own mail route, friends. And my mother put our card face down, in the drawer under the telephone book. And my father drove to town to find the sheriff. And by that evening, the sheriff had called somebody, who had called somebody. And the next morning, the government of the United States came up, rural delivery too, with clipboards and receipts, and took 9 days of mail back out of our houses. Friends, letter by letter, door by door. And you have heard me tell some accounts from this chair. But this is the one my own family is inside of, and I have waited 52 years until every signature on every one of those receipts belonged to a dead man, to tell it. Before we walk that road together, do one thing for an old farm boy. Put in the comments where you are tonight, your town, your state, and how far you can see your own mailbox from your kitchen window. Friends, exactly. In steps or in yards, because I promise you that by the end of this account, you will go measure, and I like to know my listeners are prepared. I read every one. My name is Alman Petrie. In 1974, I was 16 years old, and my people farmed a hillside in the northeast corner of Vermont, the corner they call the Northeast Kingdom, friends. And if you have never been, I will build it for you, because the kingdom is a character in this account. It is the emptiest, oldest feeling country east of the Mississippi. Friends, spruce dark on the ridgelines, sugar maple gone to fire every October, granite coming up through thin fields like knees through a worn blanket, and roads, friends, dirt roads mostly, running from almost nowhere to nowhere at all, with a farm every half mile holding on the way farms hold, by habit and mortgage and stubbornness. Our road was 11 miles of that, up along a brook and over a height of land and down again. 13 families in 1974, and its name on the map of the United States Post Office was Rural Delivery Route 2, out of the Gibbs Hollow office. And I want you to understand what a mail route is in country like that, friends, because it is not what it is in town. The mail was the day's one event. The mail was proof the outside world remembered you. The mail was your prices, and your pension, and your boy's handwriting from the army. And the man who carried it was welded into the life of that road, deeper than any preacher. And our man, friends, our man for 31 years, was Winfield Dow. Window. I want his portrait on the record, because everything that came after happened to his route, and you cannot weigh it right without weighing him. 58 years old that fall, wide as a door in his wool coat, drove a right-hand drive Willie's Jeep. The post office had retired twice, and he had bought and kept alive himself, friends, and he knew us. Knew every family, every dog by name and disposition, every child's birthday, from watching the cards come. He carried spare chains in winter for other people's cars. He carried Mrs. Aldous her insulin from town every second Tuesday, blizzard or no, friends, for 11 years. And the one time the state road was closed outright, he came over the height of land on a borrowed snowmobile with the insulin inside his coat. And when my mother thanked him at our box for some kindness or other, he would always say the same thing, friends. I heard it 100 times with my own ears, and you will want it remembered by the end of tonight. He would touch his cap and say, "Just carrying words, ma'am. Somebody has got to carry the words." Monday, the 21st of October, 1974, was maple fire weather, hard blue sky, first ice on the water pails, and Window left the Gibbs Hollow office at 8:10 in the morning, friends on the dot, 31 years of on the dot, with the Roots mail sorted into his trays, and he ran the boxes up the Brook Road the way he always ran them. And we know his morning to the minute, because in country like ours, a mail jeep is a clock, friends. Half the road set its kitchen radio by him. Mrs. Aldous saw him at box 29 at 9:40 and traded him a wave. The Tatro brothers heard him grind the hill below their sugar house around 10. And at approximately 10:25, friends between box 47, which was the Cassavants at the foot of the height of land, and box 48, which was ours, on a straight open quarter-mile of dirt road, with a mowed field on one side and a young fence line of popple on the other. No cover, friends, no ditch a man could lie in. Nothing between those two boxes. But October, Winfield Dow and 31 years of on the dot came to a stop that nobody saw. It was my mother who found the Jeep. Friends, at 11, walking down for the mail with the egg money in her apron pocket. The Willies was sitting in the middle of the road, at idle, patient as a horse. Driver's door standing open. The trays were in order. The sack for the far boxes was strapped where it rode. Our road's letters for that day, friends, bundled and ready, sat on the passenger seat under his reading glasses, folded closed, laid on top of the bundle the way a man lays his glasses down when he means to be right back. And of Window himself, on that open quarter-mile, in the middle of a hard blue morning, there was not one thing, not a cap, not a footprint. In the road dust, past the door, friends and my mother, a farm woman of the kingdom, not given to nerves, stood by that idling Jeep and called his name twice, and told us at supper, with her hands flat on the table to keep them somewhere, that the second time she called it, the popple leaves on the whole fence line, friends, on a morning with no wind at all, turned over once, all together, the way leaves do before rain, and turned back. And that, friends, was the last morning. The mail on rural delivery 2 was ever late, because the next day it came on time, and the man was gone, friends, and the mail came anyway. The search for Window was the whole kingdom's business. By Tuesday noon, friends, and I want to give it to you honestly, because it was honest work and it found honest nothing. Deputy Orvis Lackey ran it, a careful man, and he did the careful things. The Jeep was gone over, and it told them what it had told my mother. A vehicle at idle, in gear neutral, handbrake set, friends, set. The way a man sets it for a box stop, mail bundled, glasses folded. No blood, no struggle. Half a thermos of coffee still against the seat, still faintly warm at noon. The road dust held every track that quarter-mile had to give. friends, and it gave them my mother's shoes coming down, and the Jeep's own tires coming up, and at the driver's door, Wynn's boots, both of them, planted, toes toward the height of land, the way a man stands who has stepped out to look at something up the road, friends, and from those two boot prints, nothing. No stride out, no turnaround. Two prints, and the road dust beyond them, lying smooth as poured cream all the way to our box. They walked the brook both directions. They walked the popple line. They brought the state police and a dog. Wednesday morning, friends, a good tracking shepherd, out of St. Johnsbury, and I stood at our fence with my father and watched that dog work, because school was nothing that week. She took Wynn's scent off the Jeep seat, strong and glad, and she ran it up the road, friends, dead up the middle of the road, nose down 40 yards, to a spot just short of our box, a spot in the plain open road, and she stopped. And she did the thing I have since heard other dogs, in other accounts of mine, have done, and the hair stood on my arms. When I heard it told again years later, friends, because I had seen it at 16 with my own eyes. She sat down, she looked up, straight up, friends, into a hard blue empty sky, and she whined once, and would not take another step north on that road. Not for love, not for meat. And the handler, an old trooper, looked up where his dog was looking for a long moment. At nothing. At October. And then he said to Deputy Lackey, "Quiet." But I was near enough, he said. In 12 years, I have had her lose a trail twice. She has never once told me a trail went up. They dragged the mill pond. They cut brush along the brook for a mile. Men from 3 towns walked shoulder to shoulder across our fields, and the cassavants and through the sugar bush. Friends, 200 of them by Thursday. And Thursday, friends. I need you to mark Thursday, the 24th of October, the 3rd day of the search, because that is the day the account stops being a disappearance and becomes what I have carried ever since. Because on Thursday morning, at about 10:30, while 200 men were beating the brush for her mail carrier, Mrs. Aldous, at box 29, 4 miles south of us, heard her box lid clap in the wind, friends, except there was no wind, and went out, and her flag was down, which she had not touched, and in her box, friends, on the 3rd day of Window, being gone off the face of God's earth, was her mail. Her actual mail. The electric bill, a flyer from the co-op, and a birthday card from her sister in Barre. Real, stamped, postmarked 2 days prior. Friends, the sister confirmed the sending of it down to the ink. Somebody, on a road crawling with searchers and troopers, in broad morning, had delivered the mail to box 29 and box 30 and 31. Friends, and all 60. Every box on rural delivery 2 had its Thursday mail that Thursday, correct to the family, correct to the box, flags worked proper, and not one soul of the 200 on that road, friends, not one trooper at either checkpoint, not one farm wife at one kitchen window, and in the kingdom. The kitchen window is a surveillance state. Saw any vehicle, any walker, anything at all go up or down that road with a mail sack. The mail was simply in the boxes, friends, the way frost is simply on the grass. And I will tell you the detail that emptied the church that Sunday. The dogs, friends. Every farm on that road kept dogs, work dogs, loud ones, the kind that announce a chipmunk crossing the yard. And from the day Window vanished to the day the government closed our route, 17 days, friends. Not one dog on rural delivery. 2 barked at the road, not once. My own Duchess, hell on every vehicle that ever climbed our hill, lay on the porch boards those mornings with her ears flat and her eyes on the road. Friends, and shivered. and made no more sound than the mailbox itself. And my father stood over her on the fourth morning, looking down the hill at the flag that had gone up by itself in the gray light, and said the only thing I ever heard that man say about it, friends, until the government came. He said, well, whatever is carrying the words now, the dogs have voted not to mention it. At the Gibbs Hollow office, Vesta Knapp, postmistress, 30 years behind that counter, was doing the federal arithmetic and coming apart with it. Friends, quietly, the way kingdom women come apart, at the seams only. Because the mail that was appearing in our boxes was real mail, friends. That is the piece that broke the sensible explanations before they could stand up. It was the actual inbound mail for Route 2. The letters and bills and cards that came off the truck from White River each dawn into her office, that she sorted with her own hands into the Route 2 trays each morning. And each morning, friends, with the route suspended and no carrier assigned, with the trays sitting in a locked federal building behind her counter, she would sort it and go to her lunch and come back, friends. And the trays would be empty. Locked office, no substitute carrier. The substitute list was one name long, and that man was cutting corn in Orleans. Empty trays. And by 2 in the afternoon, the mail from those trays was up the road. In the boxes it was addressed to, friends. And Vesta Knapp did what a good postmistress does. She reported it up her chain, in writing, every day, and stopped sorting the trays on the 6th day. Left the mail bundled in the safe, friends in the safe. And on the 7th morning, the safe held only the bundle strings, cut clean, and rural delivery too. Had its mail that day too. And that, friends, was the day Vesta stopped writing reports and started calling a number in Boston twice a day. And the day my father began sitting up nights at the kitchen window, with the lights off and the deer rifle across his knees, watching a mailbox, friends, like it was a wolf at the sheep. And I would sneak down and sit with him some hours, 16 years old, and we never talked. And on the 8th dawn, friends, we saw it. Both of us. I will tell you in the next part what a mailbox looks like. Friends, when the flag goes up on its own, 6 inches from nothing, in the gray light, with the metal creak carrying up a dead-still hill, and what was already lying inside when we walked down, because I have to stop here a minute. 52 years, friends, and my hands still do this when I come to the 8th morning. Before the 8th morning, friends, you need the letters themselves, because for the families of Route 2, the letters were the weak. The letters were where the fear actually lived, and I have never told this part in order to anyone. It was Mrs. Cassavant, our neighbor at Box 47, who found the first postscript. Wednesday of the first week, a letter from her son, friends, her actual son, stationed at Fort Devens, his handwriting verified by her own mother heart, and later by federal men with loops, chatty and ordinary, the mess hall, a truck he was fixing, and at the bottom, below his sign-off, in his same ballpoint, his same hand, friends, one line he swears on his children to this day he never wrote. P.S. Leave the box open on Thursdays. She thought it a joke of his. She showed the neighbor women at church, and the neighbor women, friends, went home and opened their own week's mail, the mail that had come while no man carried it. And by Sunday night, the whole road knew what the federal men would confirm, with their loops and their labs a week later, and then own forever. Every letter, friends, every piece of first-class mail delivered on rural delivery too during those 9 days, from every sender, a bank in Montpelier, a boy at Fort Devens, an old man writing his 40-year sweetheart at Box 52. Every single one had been opened. Friends, opened clean and resealed so well The labs had to prove it with solvents. Nothing taken. Nothing altered in the message. And one line added at the end in each case. Friends, hear this exactly. In the handwriting of the sender. Indistinguishable. Ink matched, pressure matched. And it was always, always the same 11 words. P.S. Leave the box open on Thursdays. The bank letter had it typed, Friends. Same machine as the letter, the lab said. Same worn ribbon. Below the loan officer's signature, a postscript no loan officer on this earth would type. Leave the box open on Thursdays. If this is your first night at this lamp, I will hold the fire only a moment, because we are near the part my hands remember. This channel is an old man, and the accounts that never made the papers. Told plain, no music, no tricks. And if that is worth your evening, subscribe, so the next account finds you. And tonight, friends, one particular kindness. Do not go check your mailbox until morning. It will keep. That is the whole kindness. It will keep. Why Thursdays? You are asking, friends, because you are listening the way I need you to. Everyone on that road asked it too, in kitchens, with the shades drawn. And it was my mother who said it first at our table, quiet, looking at nobody, the way she said true things. Thursday was parcel day, she said. 31 years, friends. Window's own custom. Our road's private institution. Small things he wedged in the box, but anything of size. And Thursday was when the catalog's parcels came. Thursday he would set inside your box lid, standing open, propped. His signal, friends, package too big, come down. And if you left your box lid, standing open of a Thursday morning, it meant to win. I am home. Leave the parcel. Ring the bell if you have a minute. A whole silent language between one man and 60 boxes, friends, 31 years old, and nobody outside our 11 miles could have known it. No substitute, no prankster, no federal analyst in Boston. Whatever was running Route 2, friends, whatever was opening the words of our sons and our banks and adding to them in their own hands, it was not asking us something new. It was asking, friends, in the only language it had, our own oldest language, for the Route's old arrangement to continue. It knew the custom, friends. It had either taken the custom out of Window, or, and this is the possibility my father would not allow spoken in the house, and so I will speak it here, 52 years late, it had taken the custom with him, friends. It was not something wearing the Route, it was the Route, and Win was in it, the way his voice was in his letters, and it wanted the boxes open on Thursdays because somebody had to carry the words, friends, and it intended, with whatever it now was, to keep carrying them. The 8th morning, then. Gray, still, hoarfrost. My father and I at the dark kitchen window, the rifle across his knees gone cold hours since, and our box down the hill just a shape against the road. Flag down, friends. I had watched him put it down at dusk with my own eyes after the 7th day's delivery, and at 6:51 by the stove clock, with the light just coming, the flag came up. Friends, I am an old man. I have buried a wife and 2 brothers. I have seen what the years show everybody, and that remains the single sight of my life. No car on the road, no hand at the box. 60 yards from our window, in gray open light, the little red tin flag of a Sears mailbox, swung up from down to up. Friends, smooth, unhurried, the way a flag goes up, when a wrist you cannot see is doing it gently, and the creak of the hinge came up our hill, through the dead air. 1 second later, the way sound does, friends? That 1 second of delay is the detail my body has never once let go of. And my father stood up out of his chair slow, like a man in church, and he did not raise the rifle. Friends, He took his hand off it, and he said, "To me, or to the window, or to the road, Alman. Go put the coffee on. We are done sitting up nights over this. Whatever it is, son, it has better manners than half this valley, and it is nothing a Petrie is going to shoot at out a kitchen window." And we walked down together after chores, friends, father and son, to a mailbox with its flag up. In a world gone quiet, and inside, on top of the day's bundle, squared to the box like it had been set with a level, was a letter for my mother. And the handwriting on the envelope, friends, was her own mother's. My grandmother, Ida Fay Petrie, by marriage, Ida Fay Lyford by blood, who had died, friends, in her sleep, in the front room of our house, 13 months before, in September of 1973, and whose funeral my mother had wept at, and whose hand, friends, my mother knew the way she knew her own. The letter from my grandmother is the heart of this account, friends, and I am going to handle it the way my mother handled it, which is to say carefully, and not entirely, because some of it is hers and stays hers, in the ground with her now. The envelope was postmarked, friends. That is the first impossible thing. A real cancellation, White River Junction, and the date under the wavy lines, when my father held it to the window glass, was the 18th of September, 1973. One day, friends, before the morning we found my grandmother gone in her sleep. A letter mailed, by its face, 13 months before, arriving in a week when a dead man's route was delivering itself. And my mother sat down at the kitchen table with it, and looked at it a long time, and then she opened it, friends, because her mother's hand was on it, and there is not a force in heaven or under the hill that stands between a kingdom woman and her mother's hand. I will tell you the shape of what was in it, and no more. It was a real letter, friends. The letter Ida Fay had evidently written and walked to her own box the last afternoon of her life, and that had gone, somewhere, undelivered, for 13 months, ordinary family matter. The garden, a quilt pattern she was sending along, a line about her heart doctor that took on a terrible weight after. And it was her, friends, every loop of it. The labs never saw this one, but my mother was a better lab than any of them. It was her mother entire. And at the bottom, friends. Below Ida Fay's sign-off, which was the same sign-off she used all her life, in the same fountain ink, in the same hand, there was the postscript, but not the postscript, friends. Not the 11 words the rest of the road got, on my grandmother's letter, and I stood at my mother's shoulder and read it at 16, and I am reading it still. The added line said, P.S. Tell Marion. And Marion was my mother. Friends, tell Marion the box can stay shut now Thursdays. He carries fine. He says the hill is not steep, this side. He carries fine, friends. He says the hill is not steep, this side. My mother folded that letter back into its envelope, and she looked at my father, and neither of them said one word. And she got up and put it inside the family Bible, in the book of Ruth, friends, where her mother's wedding flowers were pressed, and that is where it lived through everything that came after. And the reason it could live there is the timing, friends, the mercy of one single day, because the 9th day was the next day. The photographs in the 60 boxes, each family's own house shot from the height of a mail jeep seat. And I told you what came after the photographs. The morning after the 9th day, the government arrived. Friends, and I mean arrived. 5 sedans and a step van, postal inspectors in front, and men behind them, whose credentials said things the deputy would not repeat. And they did the thing that the whole kingdom still talks about sideways 50 years later. They went door to door up rural delivery too, with typed inventories, friends, and they recalled the mail. All of it. Every piece delivered from the 22nd of October through the 30th. Every letter, every bill, every catalog. The birthday card from Bar. The boy's letter from Fort Devens. The sweetheart letter at Box 52. And all 60 photographs. Friends. They knew the count. They knew what each family had received before they knocked. They had, the Cassavants swore, carbon lists of mail nobody outside the sender and the box had ever seen. And they took it all, friends, politely, irresistibly, into numbered evidence sleeves, and they gave receipts, government receipts, a slip of federal paper in exchange for your son's own words, and when Mrs. Aldous, 80 years old, stood in her door and refused to hand over her sister's birthday card. Friends, the oldest of the quiet men did not argue with her. He looked at her a moment, tired and kind, and he said, "Ma'am, I understand. I do. But that card has been somewhere on its way to you, that the post office cannot certify, and until we know where the words have been, we cannot let people keep them." And Mrs. Aldous, friends, gave him the card, and my mother, one farm up the road, hearing the sedans work toward us box by box, took one letter out of the family Bible and put it down the front of her dress, friends, and met the United States government at her kitchen door with coffee, and lied to its face at 60 yards from where her mother died. And if you think God holds that lie against Marion Petrie, friends, you and I read different Bibles. They close the route, friends. That is the end the paperwork admits to. Rural delivery, too, was discontinued that winter. Permanent. 13 families converted to general delivery in town. Drive in for your own mail forevermore. And the reason on the federal form, I have seen the form, was route consolidation, non-viability. Friends. 13 families who had had mail service since before the automobile. Unviable. In one winter. And the boxes came down. Friends. That is the detail that hurt in a way I could not name at 16. Inspectors with a truck. In November. Pulling our boxes off their posts up the whole 11 miles. 60 little tin houses with their flags. Into the truck bed like pulled teeth. And the posts they left. Friends. A fence of headless posts up the Brook Road for years. Until frost heave, and time took them one by one. And Win Dow, friends, Winfield Dow, 31 years of somebody has got to carry the words, was declared dead in absentia in 1979, a stone in the Gibbs Hollow yard with no one under it, and the federal file on our 9 days, which a nephew of the Cassavants who became a lawyer went digging for in the 90s through every freedom of information. Door there is, does not exist, friends. Not sealed, not redacted. The response, in writing, was that no incident matching the description is recorded, which means, friends, as you and I both now understand at this hour of the lamp, that somewhere it is recorded very well indeed, on a shelf, in a sleeve. 60 photographs of 60 houses filed, the way it files things, and one letter short, friends, one letter short. And that shortfall sleeps in the book of Ruth, in a farmhouse Bible, that is now in my keeping, in this room, 8 feet from this lamp, and it is the only piece of Rural Delivery 2's 9th day mail. I would wager my remaining nights, still in civilian hands, and now, friends, at last, you know what I am, and what this account has been all along. I am the discrepancy in a federal inventory, friends. I am the man who keeps the letter. And there is one more thing in this house that came off that route, and I bought it at auction with my own money in 1981. And it is in the barn, friends, and we will go out to it in the last part. Because what I found sewed inside it is the reason I finally believe I understand what Route 2 was, and what, God rest and keep him wherever he carries, Window is. The years, friends, and then the barn. The families of Route 2 did what people do, which is continue. 3 households sold out and moved inside 18 months, the Cassavants among them. And Mrs. Cassavant, my mother's friend 40 years, said the true reason once, at the door, with the moving van idling. "It is not fear, Marion," she said. "It is the driving to town for the mail." Every day, driving past where the box was. The post is still there. I cannot keep passing my own post. The rest of us stayed, friends, because kingdom people stay. And the road grew its quiet, back over the account. The way moss grows over a stone wall. And the dogs, friends. I will give you this one small mercy of a detail. The dogs began barking at the road again that spring. All of them. The same week. And my father marked it in the farm diary. "Friends, I have the diary," the entry says, in his hand, between a calf price and a note on the south fence, quote, "Dogs speaking to the road again as of this week. Whatever ran the route has quit us, or been reassigned," end quote. My father, friends, he put more understanding in a farm diary line than the government put in its non-existent file. Vesta Knapp kept the Gibbs Hollow office another 16 years, and kept her own counsel just as long, friends, and in 1990, retired, at her niece's kitchen table, with me there splitting her stove wood as I did most falls by then. She said her piece. The only piece she ever said, and I wrote it down that night, word for word. "Alman," she said, "you were a boy on it. So hear an old federal woman before I lose my nerve. I sorted that route 30 years, and there were mornings," she said, "early mornings, first light in the office, when I would be casing the Route 2 trays, and I would come to some letter, some ordinary letter, and my hands, friends." She held them up. My hands would not want to put it in the tray. Some letters wanted to go up that road, Alman, and some letters, my hands always knew which, did not want to go, and I put them all in the tray anyway, because I am the post office, and I have wondered since the 9th day, every night of my retirement, how long the route had been what it was and whether Winfield knew. And she looked at me, friends, and said the sentence I brought you all this way to hear. RD2 was a route before it was a mail route, Alman. Old roads carry. That is what they are for. The government drew our line on top of an older line. Son, the way you build a church on an older church. And for 31 years, Winfield Dow paid the toll for all of us, every day on the dot, without ever once telling a soul what he was paying. And the day the toll got too dear, friends, or the day the old line called in its lease, we found out what the arrangement had been. And then Vesta Knapp drank her tea, friends, and never spoke of it again in the 6 years she had left. The barn then, and the finish. In 1981, the regional office auctioned old equipment, and Lot 41, friends of course it was one retired right-hand drive, Willie's mail Jeep, rough, rusted. The very machine. I knew its dents like my father's face, and I bought it for practically scrap, the only bidder, because every other soul in that hall knew whose it was, and I trailered it home and put it in the barn and told my wife it was for parts, and it was not for parts, friends. You know by now what it was. It was because somebody has got to keep the things too. I went through it one long march, with a drop light, friends, And it was a Jeep, honest and empty, until I pulled the seat cushion to fix the frame. And inside the cushion, friends, sewed into the horsehair with waxed thread. By hand, by a careful hand, I found a canvas wrap, and in the wrap was a ring of keys. 61 keys, friends, small ones, old flat steel ones, hand-filed, wired in bundles of 10, each key tagged with a number in Window's printing, 1 through 60. And key 61, friends, larger, older, tagged with no number at all but one word, and I will come to the word. And you will say, keys to the mailboxes, Alman, sentimental man that he was. Friends, rural boxes have no locks, never have. 60 numbered keys to 60 locks that do not exist, filed by hand over what the wear on them says was years. Friends, decades. And I have had one long time to sit in a barn with that ring and understand it. And here is where I have landed, and then the rule, and then we are done. I believe the boxes we saw, friends, the tin Sears boxes on their posts, were the church built on the church. And I believe that somewhere under or behind or alongside our 60 boxes, there are 60 others, friends on the older line, the line that carries, and that they do lock, and that the carrier of our road had, in whatever coin such things are cut, made himself keys, friends, one family at a time, year by patient year, 60 locks between whatever moves on the old line and the houses of the people he loved. And he walked out between box 47 and 48 one October morning to pay the last installment. And the 9 days after, friends, the gentle 9 days, the letters that arrived with manners, the flags raised soft, the postscript asking, friends, not taking. For one open box a week, that was not a haunting. That was a handover, friends, conducted by a man who, even from the far side of his own vanishing, was standing between us and the old line, teaching his replacement the customs, and the last letter of it, my grandmother's letter, holds the proof in 8 words. He carries fine. The hill is not steep, this side. And the 61st key, friends, the old one, the unnumbered one. The tag on it, in Window's print, says Gibbs. Not Gibbs Hollow, friends, just Gibbs. And the town history, which I have read to its bindings since, says the hollow is named for no settler anyone can document, friends. There was never a family Gibbs in that valley. There was only, always, the hollow. And something the first surveyor's notes, 1791, called in passing, in old brown ink, the Gibbs. The way you would say, the Narrows, friends, or the Falls. A feature of the land with a name that wanted the definite article, and my road's mail carrier owned a key to it, and I keep that key, friends, in the Bible, in Ruth, with the letter. And I have never gone looking for its lock. And I am 86 days from 86 years old, friends, and I never will now. And that is not a failure of courage. That is the rule, learned from the best man I ever watched work. Somebody has got to carry the words, but nobody, friends, nobody has got to open the door they come through. So here are your rules, friends, kingdom rules, cheap to keep, dear to learn. If your flag is up and you ordered nothing, open the box from beside it, not from in front, and look before you reach. If a letter comes from a hand that is done writing, friends, love it, keep it, hide it from every government there is, but do not answer it. There is no stamp for where the answer goes, and you should not want to learn what carries it. If the old ones of your road keep a small custom that makes no sense, an open lid, a coin on a post, a gate latched a certain way, keep it too, friends. Customs are the receipts of old arrangements, and you do not want to be the generation that let the payments lapse. And the last rule, friends, the whole of it. Somebody carries the words between all of us. Always has. Mostly it is a good soul in a Jeep, with your children's birthdays in his head. And if the day comes when the words keep arriving, and the carrier does not, friends, be courteous, be brief, take in your mail, and leave the box shut Thursdays, unless a hand you trust past death itself writes to tell you it can stay shut for good. Put your town in the comments for an old farm boy, friends, and how many steps to your box. I keep the ledger now. Somebody has to. Thank you for walking the route with me. Flag down, lid shut, light on, friends. Good night.